It's pretty amazing how just one single sentence, spoken thousands of years ago, can unlock so much about human nature, about psychology, even fate. Today, we're going to unpack just one of those sentences to see what it's really all about. So, let's get right into it.
So here's the quote. We're on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The speaker, Prince Duryodhana. And he's sizing up the two massive armies about to go to war. Now, on the surface, it's just a super confident, you could even say arrogant statement. And this one line is at the very heart of everything we're looking at today.
And that really is the big question, isn't it? Was he right? I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, just strength versus strength. But as we're about to find out, there is so much more going on with this simple boast than you'd think.
Okay, so first up, let's just take him at his word for a second and really break down what he's saying. He's framing this whole conflict in these really absolute terms, creating this story of his overwhelming, unstoppable force against, well, an opponent that's not.
So here you can see his thinking laid out pretty clearly. His army, the Kauravas, he calls them unlimited, and they're led by the legendary commander, Bhishma. But his enemies, the Pandavas, they're just limited, led by his arch-nemesis, Bhima. In his mind, it's a simple case of big versus small. End of story.
Okay, but this is where it gets really interesting. The specific Sanskrit word he uses is aparyaptam. And this isn't just him saying, hey, we're stronger. No, this word means immeasurable, boundless, infinite. He's basically claiming a godlike level of power for his side. It's a huge claim. And then, for his enemy, he uses the exact opposite. Paryaptam. This means limited, measurable, something you can actually count, and if you can count it, you can defeat it. You see, the language he's using is a strategy in itself. It's a power move, right? Designed to boost his troops' morale and make it seem like the battle's already won.
But what if all this language tells us less about the armies and a lot more about the man who's speaking? Let's dig into the psychology here, because this paints a picture of a leader who's, well, right on the brink.
So, there's this ancient proverb that commentators always bring up when they talk about this verse, and it completely flips the script on Duryodhana's so-called confidence. It goes like this, Vinash kale viprit buddhi. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means, when the end draws near, egoistic people indulge in vainglory. Think about that. It's suggesting that this kind of boastful arrogance isn't a sign of strength at all. It's actually a symptom of your own downfall. All of a sudden, Duryodhana's big, confident boast starts to sound, well, pretty tragic, doesn't it?
Okay, so maybe his psychology is a bit shaky. But what about his actual military assessment? I mean, his whole claim to unlimited strength, it all comes down to the power of his commander-in-chief, the great Bhishma.
And you know what? On paper, this makes total sense. Grandsire Bhishma was this incredible warrior, and he had this amazing boon where he could choose the exact moment of his own death. So for all practical purposes, the guy was invincible. Duryodhana's logic here, it seems pretty sound.
But, and this is a huge but, Bhishma's power wasn't the only thing in play. His heart was. See, he was the grandfather to the leaders of both armies. So while his duty forced him to fight for Duryodhana, his heart, his compassion, was with the Pandavas. He knew his own side was in the wrong. He was leading this massive army totally half-heartedly. And let me tell you, an invincible warrior who doesn't actually want to win, that's not a strength. That's a fatal weakness.
And that brings us to the final and, honestly, the most profound layer of this whole story. There was another source of power on that battlefield. Something so huge that Duryodhana's ego made him completely blind to it. But Bhishma? Oh, he could see it plain as day.
So, what was it? What was this secret variable that Bhishma knew about? The one thing that completely flipped the script on this whole war and turned the so-called limited army into the truly unlimited one?
Well, the answer wasn't some secret weapon or a hidden battalion of troops. According to the text, the Supreme Lord Krishna himself was right there, physically present on the battlefield. And this is what shows you just how wrong Duryodhana's calculation was.
See, Krishna wasn't just some neutral observer watching from the sidelines. No, he was actually serving as the humble charioteer for Arjuna, the great Pandava hero. He had put himself right on the side that Duryodhana had just laughed off as limited. Now, for a wise person like Bhishma, this meant everything. Krishna's presence was a sign that Dharma, righteousness, moral justice, the right way of things, was on the side of the Pandavas. And in that worldview, the side that's aligned with Dharma, it doesn't matter how small they are, they have the real unlimited strength. Their victory is basically a done deal.
So when you step back from this ancient story, you can really see how one guy's boast turns into this incredible lesson about perception. It's a totally timeless look at how we measure what strength really is and, more importantly, what our own egos make us fail to see.
All right, so let's just quickly recap the journey we just took. We started with this simple claim, right? Our army is unlimited. Then we peeled that back and saw it was really just a symptom of a flawed ego. Then, under that, we found the human element, this invincible commander who didn't even want to fight. And at the very heart of it all, we found the true source of power. That real, unlimited strength has nothing to do with numbers and everything to do with being on the side of righteousness. And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. Duryodhana got the entire war wrong because his ego was busy counting soldiers, but it couldn't see convection. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our own lives, how often does our own ego make us misjudge what is truly limited and what is actually truly unlimited?